Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very excited because for the first time in studio, we have author Anlor Davin. And those of you who watch the show regularly probably remember that we had her on midsummer, but it was one of the worst Skype call connections we've ever had in the history of mankind. And yet you toughed it out with us. You did so well. But we said we can't leave it at this because it was hard for you to hear us and hard for us to hear you. Oh, it was just not what we want when we do things at Autism Live. So we've asked Anlor to come back, and she said, I'm going to be in the area, so we've got her here in the studio with us. And of course, she is the author of the book Being Seen, and we'd love to have you hold that up so that people can see. I love the cover of this book. It's my favorite color, I have to say, and it's beautiful because the cover goes along with what you talk about in the book. Yeah. So there's these 3 charms. Tell us what the 3 charms symbolize.
Okay, so, the Buddha is because I practice Zen. And Zen is my what you see is my Zen practice. Without my Zen practice, I could never be like I am as, functioning and being able to do that. And so, it's really a big part of my life. And should I talk about this now? Or
sure, you can, because this is something that has worked for you to help you to calm and focus and do things. We should mention, we haven't already, that you are somebody who received an autism spectrum diagnosis in your lifetime. And how old were you when you were diagnosed? It was later.
46, yes,
right.
Later.
Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people come to it later on. But so this has helped you, meditation has helped you, and so you didn't stop with yourself, now you're putting it out there for other people.
Exactly, well said, that's exactly it. So what I started is a meditation group for people on the autism and neurodiverse spectrum. Mm-hmm. And so we meet once a month in a little town, not that small, but anyway, north of San Francisco, called San Rafael, and this is called autism-live.net.
Okay. And we've got that. We can put it up on the screen as well, autism-live.net.
Yes.
And so people can go to that site to find more information about how to connect with, but meditation for folks that are neurodiverse and or on the autism spectrum. Totally. Because you can speak to the fact that it really made a difference for you.
Yes.
What do you think the biggest benefits have been for you? You just said you couldn't be here being who you are. What has it helped you to do, Anlor?
It doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. And it's not like, overnight you can see a big change at all. So it requires a lot of faith and discipline. But obviously, I am more anchored in myself, if that's a word.
Sure, absolutely.
I managed to somehow, it calms me down. Mm-hmm. Somehow it makes going out in a lot of stimuli better.
Yeah. Wonderful. We so embrace that kind of thinking here on the show. Every Thursday we have a mindfulness moment on the show, and we talk about something that we can do, whether we're parents, teachers, practitioners, or on the spectrum ourselves, something that we can do to be more in the present, to be more mindful and be more centered.
I'm glad
so
to hear that.
We're not Zen masters like you are.
Oh, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not. Please, I'm far from it.
But I think you've done this a lot longer than I have. But we embrace that here. We understand that life is stressful, and that being able to come from a place of clarity and a place where your breath is centered can only help. Mm-hmm. Only help.
You're saying it the right way. Zen is for me everything.
Wonderful. Well, and I think enough people, we're trying to get more parents of kiddos that are on the spectrum involved in that, but I think it's really important that people acknowledge that for the individual who's on the spectrum, this is pretty important, as we're hearing from you. Mm-hmm. So tell us about the other two.
Okay, the other two charms.
Yes.
So the middle one, which I'm often asked about, because it's not as evident. This is a bottle with a music box. You rewind it underneath, and there's a little dancer in the middle. Now, my dad and I were absolutely, totally paralyzed by looking at it. We did it again and again and again, and so my mom decided to give it to me. So now I have it, and the reason the dancer is so I feel such an important thing. There's a hypnosis. About rewinding the same, but also she's inside glass.
Yeah.
See, it's a little glass.
And is that what the real music box looks like? Wow.
Totally. Well, the only change is this part. Actually, this is also an important part, if I may say, because this is my banner. That's what you see on my website.
Okay. Yes.
And it comes from it's actually a stimming drawing that I had when I was a kid. Okay. I kept doing the same thing over and over and over. Right. And I actually think it turned out pretty well. Of course, this one is a special thing that I did once because I was so jealous of my brother.
So did you actually draw that charm, Anlor?
I did not draw the charm. I drew the banner on it.
It's beautiful.
No. The charm is just to being behind glass. It's very much how I have felt my entire life.
Yeah.
And also I was, believe it or not, one of my passion when I was a teenager was classical dancing.
I believe
so.
That.
I mean, I did it for hours on end, alone in the big bedroom upstairs. So there. That's why
wonderful.
We put that.
And of course, the Eiffel Tower. Tell us why that is so important to you.
I'm sure you've noticed my accent by now. So yes, I am French. I was born and raised in France, and I came here when I was 23 years old. So French is very much a part of me too.
Yes.
And that's a part I don't want to forget at all.
Absolutely. And so this book really details some, important parts, touchstones of your journey along the way of feeling different, of having difficulties, not being able to figure out why things didn't just gel. I mean, you've led a pretty amazing life. You're a mom. You came from France to the United States. A lot of people would look at that and go, well, gosh, that seems like you were very functional and very capable and very able to do things. But it didn't feel that way on the inside. Tell us a little bit about what that felt like for you and why you felt like the girl behind the glass.
Yeah, well, I always had huge sensory problems. Obviously, I'm wearing my hat today, and I got my earplugs in my pocket, and and on and on. And I became very ill at ease, and I was able to steer away from showing it in public. However, often things take a toll on me,
yes.
And later on, in the privacy of my own place, I'm likely to have some serious, call it meltdowns or whatever, the autistic. Yes. So, yes, it seemed to many people like I function, which is very hard because it's kind of the invisible handicap.
Yes.
Yes. So it's like, how do I explain to people? So my book is really to try to explain to people a little bit about how this happened to me.
Yeah. And I think, there's so much in there that I think people will respond to, whether it's that you're talking about being a young mother and not knowing quite how to handle that.
Yeah.
And it's got quite the happy ending because you have a great relationship with your child now, correct?
Right, you're correct.
But it was really, really difficult. And but also, one of the things that I found fascinating was you talking about some of the repetitive ritualistic things that you experienced as a child, that some, like for instance, wanting to sit and watch the wind up thing, that's a repetitive thing. Those kinds of, we call them, sometimes we refer to it as stims, but you talk about tennis, as I recall, about how you would be happy to just play tennis forever, that they could have just taken you down to the tennis court and you would have just played until you dropped. And that sometimes I think families see those kinds of markers, but because we're so busy trying to put things in a good column or a bad column,
very
we
sad.
miss the bigger picture sometimes, that it isn't good or bad. It's, you know, there's something going on. And it can be a positive thing, and it can be something that's detrimental.
Well said, yes.
So I think that this is a good book for people to read if they are experiencing difficulties in their life, if they have somebody that they love that's experiencing difficulties. But I really think it's a great book for parents to read, to get insight into what may or may not be going on inside their particular kiddo's body and in their head.
Yes, thank you for saying that. It's true. It's for the autistic person, but it's also for the parents to understand a little bit. I want parents to also take a look at that.
And I think any mom is going to respond to it as well. You know, that I think every mom has had at least a moment where, you know, you're holding this child and you're like, oh man, I don't think I'm qualified. I don't think, and I don't know how to connect. And so I think moms will really respond to that as well. So the book is, again, Being Seen. Lovely. You've got a beautiful voice from which to write. And so people can go to your website. Tell us what your website is.
My website is my name, anlordavin.com.
Okay, great. And they can buy it you can buy it at Amazon and most major book retailers. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay, so definitely check it out. It's a great gift. I even think it's a great gift. We're coming up on a lot of teacher appreciation gifts. I think it's a great gift to give to a teacher, to give them insight into, and again, you know, we always say you've met one person on the autism spectrum, you've met one person on the spectrum. We're not saying that Anlor's experience is like your child's or anyone's in particular, but it's so insightful. Parents always say, well, I'd love to get into my child's brain. I'd love to walk around inside my child's brain. And maybe someday your child will write a book, but this is a way that you can at least have a different view of things that will help enlighten you. So I really want to encourage people to check it out. Now, you have a great life now. And you have your partner is here with us here in the studio, and we thought we'd take a break and then bring him in to talk with us about what he does and who he is. That work for you?
That works for me.
And I'll let you talk more. I'm just overrunning everything.
Thank you for your beautiful words. Okay.
Well, thank you for your beautiful words.
It's very nice to be, if I may say, it's very nice to be interviewed by people who know a little bit about autism. It's easier. Yeah.
Well, it's a thrill to have you here. We're glad that we were thrilled to have you on the show the first time. I must say, and Nancy was sorry that she couldn't be here for the interview portion of this, but part of how we connected to you, it came through two different ways. That somebody had written to Nancy and said, Nancy, there's this amazing woman that you're just going to love, and she's written this incredible book. But at the same time, I was at a speaking engagement, and I was speaking, and the other person who was speaking while I was there was Nicholas Yates, who we've featured on the show before. And I just love Nick. And we were speaking, and while we were there, I met, I'm guessing it was Nick's grandmother, and she took me aside and said, you have got to meet Anlor Davin. You have got to have her on the show and talk about her book. And I said, absolutely. And then I said to Nancy, there's somebody that I want to book on the show for this certain date. And she said, no, I have somebody that I want to book on the show for this. And they were both you.
Oh, wow.
So how funny is that?
Yeah.
That's some kismet. So in any case, thrilled. And we've been featuring Bonnie Yates on the show, who's an amazing special education attorney. So we'll tell you how that all connects in the next segment, because it's a full family circle.